Hello everyone, welcome to Advanced Project Planning and Control, Week 1. This week we will talk in general about planning and project governance. By the end of this lecture, you will be able to evaluate strategies and processes available to plan, monitor, and control projects, and also you will be able to analyze strategies and techniques used to create effective project plans. Let's talk a little about planning. They say that the difference between a good project manager and a bad project manager is planning. The goal of planning is implementing plans. And when you improve your planning, you will improve your execution. And when you organize your planning process, you improve the effectiveness of your planning. Why do we need a good, solid planning process? Because environment around the project is not stable. Yet, we need a flexible approach to planning to deal with all the changes around the project. And planning, like any process, has obstacles, and good project managers deal with planning obstacles. Planning is a huge and important phase of project management. In this phase, we are trying to build a roadmap for everyone involved with the project to follow. So, project managers, when they do their planning, they aim to build the plan and plotting out the most realistic course for the project. The plan, of course, because we have best practice for project management, will include some components such as project scope, the timeline of the project, the budget, and also it depends on the project to select the right tools for each job. The process of planning includes different steps. The first one is to collect information and data, and we need to meet regularly with the stakeholders or everyone involved with the project to gather information. We need to define the scope of the project. We need to break down the work into a work breakdown structure. We have to prioritize our goals. And also it's very, very important to define the deliverables, what we are aiming to do in this project. Then comes the scheduling. In scheduling, we will define all the activities of this project and we will sequence these activities. And of course, for each activity, we will estimate the duration, the cost, the resources, and we will assign these resources, the resources available to the project manager to these activities in the form of work packages. And of course, we have to consider the people who are working, the team who is working in this project. What are their skills? What there are capabilities? What are their strengths and weaknesses? And it is very, very important to do a thorough risk assessment. In risk assessment, we consider all the risks that we might face throughout the project. We have to build contingencies. We have to create performance baseline so we can measure our performance against this baseline. The project plan consists of smaller plans, such as the scope management plan, or how we will manage the scope, schedule management plan, how we will manage the project schedule, how we will manage the cost, quality management plan, how we will make sure that the quality of the work that we are doing is according to the standards, agreed upon standards, resource management plan, how we will manage the resources available, communication management plan, how we will communicate, what are the tools, how frequent, and of course risk management plan. We did the risk assessment, so how we will manage these risks. Procurement management plan, how we will buy the supplies, how we will manage our vendors. In the communication management plan, we might have some other plans like how we will engage with our stakeholders. So once we complete all these plans into a big master plan, project plan, we have to present these plans to the stakeholders and get agreement on what's in these plans. The relationship between project planning and project governance is control. What are the tools and techniques and strategies available to the management to control the project and to make sure that the project runs smoothly? Good planning facilitates the execution of the plans, the delivery of the project. And we need some methodology to approach planning so we can organize this huge and important process. But also planning is not simple, it's not easy. It's one of the most important components of the project management, and there is some reasons why planning is not as easy as we hope for. The first reason is the environment around the project. We will never work in a perfect environment where everything is according to our desire, our needs, our wants. We will never work in an environment that doesn't have a degree of uncertainty, a degree of risk. Also, this project might have different stakeholders, like the company managers, and stakeholders have different interests, different agendas, different end goals, and these, not contradicting, but these different interests and goals might interfere with the project. When the senior management, for example, wants to lower the costs, optimize the costs, the project manager might need different type of resources or other resources or extra resources to execute the project. Also, how risk averse these stakeholders are. The company management might focus on avoiding risks and lowering costs. On the other hand, the project manager might look at risks in a different way, might consider costs in a different way. That's why the planning process shouldn't be rigid. The project manager, while planning for the project, he or she should be flexible enough to consider different points of views, different objectives, and to understand the connection between this project, this particular project, and the big picture in the company. So for management, they have specific goals for planning. The first goal is committing resources when needed, so there is no waste whatsoever. They aim also to not committing to options too early, so it will be prematurely to commit to certain options. They also aim at maximizing project benefits while assessing risks. And here we need to talk about different companies. So the organization might be purely project based. Some other organizations or companies or businesses might be non-project driven, focusing more on production, for example. And also we have a third type, the hybrid type. So they have elements of production and elements of projects. In project-driven companies, they might have a project management office. They might have professional project managers. So project management is a recognized profession. Project managers might have multiple career paths. And of course, the income of the company comes from projects. On the other hand, the non-project driven or product driven companies, they have very few projects. The profitability mainly comes from production. The products have longer life cycles in the market. The third type is the hybrid type. So these companies or these businesses primarily production driven, but they have other projects to support production. For example, projects for new product development. They focus more on marketing. Their products relatively has shorter product life cycle. And of course, they need a rapid development process. So the main cycle of the planning starts with understanding the situation, then strategize our approach, then create the plan, then evaluate the plan. While we are doing this, we might face some issues like timing, uncertainty, and overlapping. It is critical to plan for planning because planning is a huge process that includes different steps, different people involved. best practices available in the market. So we need to plan for this process, planning for planning. Also, horizons matter. So we have different horizons. We have long term, we have mid-term, we have short term. While we are planning, we need to take these horizons into consideration. Also consider that the time available for project planning could be a constraint, because the sponsors, the stakeholders might push the project manager to start the project, to begin executing the project prematurely before the planning process matures. Also, sponsors and stakeholders, they think of the deliverables, so they want to complete the project and finish the deliverables as soon as possible. However, as project managers, our role is to communicate effectively with all stakeholders that we need to plan properly for the project. If we don't do this, we might encounter serious issues while executing the project. Another important issue related to project planning is uncertainty. So uncertainty has two types: for uncertainty, hind uncertainty. For uncertainty, guidelines, for example, guidelines unsound, incomplete, invalid, incorrect. Usually, hind uncertainty, information about the future or the future trends are incomplete, unstable. Uncertainty is one of the most important issues that we might face as project managers. So the initial information available to us might be uncertain. The guidelines might be incomplete, invalid, or incorrect. We might have no clear goals or objectives or even scope of the project. What are the causes of uncertainty? We have 6 common causes of uncertainty. Some are related to for uncertainty, some are related to hind uncertainty. For example, insufficient planning. We did not plan for the planning process. We did not have sufficient enough proper planning in place. Resistance to decisions. So we have some sort of opposing or struggling with decisions, especially that's related to modifications or transformation. And also we might have some parties or some stakeholders that are unwilling to commit or to adapt to changing circumstances. The third cause is lack of knowledge. In lacking of knowledge, we might have some stakeholders or some team members, they don't have enough knowledge about the subject they are entrusted with. They might not have enough training in a certain area. They might have an informed, educated decisions or opinions in particular subject or area of the project. The fourth cause is incomplete information, and incomplete information might include incomplete data. The attribute values are not consistent, or we have some values or some information lost in communication or in documenting. We might have missing information, and also we might have irrelevant information available. We might also have unclear information, so information that's difficult to understand, or we don't have enough explanation, or unclear instructions, or unclear reference to this information. Also, we might have unstable information. So this type of information means that this information might change constantly, or we don't know if they will change or not. I came across a paper that's published through the PMI, or the Project Management Institute, where the researchers studied different companies and identified some sources of uncertainties in different projects. So they found that they have contextual turbulences, they have stakeholder uncertainty, they have technological uncertainty, they have organizational uncertainty, and there are some sources for these uncertainties. For example, the external context or the external environment might not be clear enough or stable enough to gather stable, solid, well-defined information that we can build our plan on. They also found that customers might ask for lots of changes, and this keeps the scope of the project changing. So this is unstable information as well. We also might have new or inexperienced team members. So this is linked to the knowledge. So lack of knowledge or lack of training. We might have uncertainty related to the vendor or the contractor. Also, again, lack of knowledge and lack of due diligence on our part, like missing information or incomplete information. One of the uncertainty sources they found is project ownership. So we have not clear decisions. Sometimes we have opposition to decisions. Now let's talk about project governance. In this section, we will learn to analyze the different forms of project governance. We will understand the processes and tools used by organizations to select the projects or to prioritize projects. We will also learn about the role of project management office, and we will learn the impact of portfolio management on individual projects and the role of the project management, and also the impact of program management on individual projects and the role of the project manager. So what is governance? In governance, we think of leadership. We think of decision making. We think of guidance, guiding, directing, controlling. We think of policies, procedures, roles, responsibilities that's in place to manage the project. So some people, they think that governance is an elusive concept. There is not enough information, but no, we have now best practices, and the project management as a profession, it's relatively new. We are talking about 3 decades, around 3 decades, but we have some solid concepts related to governance so that we can build our knowledge and our expertise upon. The ultimate goal of governance is successful projects combined with excellent performance within each project. And governance is the process of decision making and the process of implementing these decisions. And to do this, we need good governance, and good governance should be participatory. So everyone involved in the project should have a stake and the ability to participate in the decision making and decision executing. Also, good governance should be census oriented. So we need to deal with these opposing sounds or voices and deal with different point of views. Also, good governance means accountability. So everyone in the project should be accountable for their roles and responsibilities. Also, good governance means transparency. There is nothing is done in the hidden rooms. Decisions are taken in a manner that has a certain rules or regulations. And also, there is enough information to take the decision and also to communicate the decisions to everyone involved. Good governance should be responsive. You know, we have so many changes in the environments that we work at. The markets are changing. Even clients and customers, they are changing. Their psychology is changing. Their demands, their needs, their expectations. So good governance means management should be responsive to address all these changes. Good governance should be effective and efficient. So we use the resources available to us in an optimal way. And also, good governance is equitable and inclusive. And very important for good governance is to follow the rule of law. We don't want to break any laws. We have legal frameworks in place that we have to follow. Kirzner designed a project management maturity model. This is a very important model, and I had the opportunity to work with this model when I was working in a hospital. Here in Canada, the healthcare system, the healthcare sector took pride in the advance that they made to their project management methodology, and they used Krisner project management maturity model, and they implemented it. So the purpose of this model is to provide a framework of progressive improvement in project management systems and processes. These systems and processes could be used to assess the organization capability and to provide like an improvement roadmap or an improvement path for the organizations to follow. In this model, we will find there are 5 stages. The first stage is the initial process. Penny Baker says in his book, although there is a recognition that there are project management processes, there are not established practices or standards, and individual project managers are not held to specific accountability by any process standards. In this initial process, documentation is loose. Management understands the definition of a project, and there are some accepted processes, and they are aware of the need for project management. They have some matrix, although these are not formally collected. The second stage is when we have some structured process and standards. We have some project management processes, but they are not considered organizational standard. We have documentation process in place. However, again, it's not well matured. It's not well developed. We have the management commitment to implement project management, but still there is no consistent understanding, there is no consistent involvement, or we don't have organizational mandate to comply to for all projects across the organization. Usually in this stage, the functional management is involved with larger projects, the more visible projects, the more important projects, but not all projects. And these larger projects are executed in a systematic way, and we might have some matrix and some procedure for execution. Also at this stage, the documentation is mainly manual. We might not have a good software. In the level 3, we have some organizational standards in place, and we have institutionalized process in place. So in this stage, all project management processes are in place. They are well documented. They are established as organizational standards. These projects, no matter the size, large or small, are managed with consideration to how the project performed in the past and what is expected for the future. So there is some sort of continuous improvement. There is also some effective and solid matrix on how we will make decisions, how we will take into consideration the changes, the issues arises, the risks, and also cost estimation, the baseline performance estimation, and the earned value. These are all in place. Here also, it's very important to understand that the organization managed to incorporate project management into the corporate standards or the organizational standards and processes. The 5th level and the highest level is optimizing process. In this level, processes are in place, they are well documented, they are well designed, and they are actively used to improve project management activities. We regularly do some lesson learned sessions, and the output of these sessions help us to improve project management processes, standards, documentation process within the organization. Also, the management is committed to effective and efficient project management. Also, they are committed to continuous improvement. So when implementing the project management maturity model, we need to assess where we are in this model, which level we are at now, and take into consideration some points or some actions, key actions that we can do to improve project management in the organization. So we need to incorporate project management processes into the organizational standards that we are implementing. We also need to expand involvement in project management across the organization. So employees and teams should be involved in key decisions, documenting the processes, risk assessment, or assessing issues that might come up. And all this involvement will directly affect the quality of the solutions and the quality of deliverables and outputs that we are doing. Not only this, we will gain the support of different entities and parties and stakeholders within the organization because they were involved in the decision-making process in early stages. And this involvement also will improve the communication, the internal communication within the organization. As you review the chapter, consider the following. Does the phases seem like a logical progression? Does it make sense for phases to overlap with each other? Level 1 is named Common Language. When you started studying project management, you began to use a common project management language with your instructions and fellow students. For example, you used some words like initiation, planning, project charter. In level 2 is named Common Processes. In the project management program, we talk about common processes such as planning, scope management, defining scope creep, identifying stakeholders. Level 3 is a singular methodology. Again, in this program, we have taught a project management methodology without explicitly calling it that. That methodology is commonly called traditional or waterfall methodology. Now let's talk about the portfolio management. How the portfolio management is linked to project management. For the project and program management, we have some selected projects. These selected projects are part of selected programs. We have sponsors that sponsor selected programs and selected projects. And the strategic project management office is supporting both projects, individual projects, and selected programs, which in turn goes to portfolio selection, what we will include in our portfolio. And sponsors and strategic project management office and the portfolio selection is the role of senior management. Then comes the executive management. So we have corporate governance that includes stakeholders. We have some legal context against fraud and bribery. We have the value and the mission and the vision of the organization. We have customer service and a relationship with our customers. We have the processes, we have the strategy, we have risk assessment and deciding on our risk tolerance, how much risk that we can take, what are the standards that we have to comply to. We might have best practice in place, and all this also leads to project governance, which in turn affects the sponsors and how they will support selected programs. It will affect the role and the responsibility and the standards for the project management office. And all this will affect selected projects. So within a company, within an organization, we have two levels of governance. We have corporate governance and we have project governance. And the link between the two types of or levels of governance is the business strategy. The business strategy dictates how the corporate governance and the project governance are linked. And of course, there is an overlap. So when I was explaining all this tree, we have seen how these two levels of governance overlap. they overlap in the strategy, they overlap in the common processes, they overlap in the risk tolerance. In project governance, we have two ongoing concerns: how compliant we are and the best practices that we implement. And we have different mechanisms. So these mechanisms, such as portfolios, programs, sponsors, project managers, project management office, all these we will talk in detail about it later. So let's talk specifically about project governance. In project governance, we have project sponsorship. We have the effectiveness of project management, and this effectiveness is related to the results that we are getting, the monitoring process, the audits that we conduct, how we assess the project capability using the maturity model, for example. We also have issues beyond the domain of project management, and the goal of project governance is successful projects and excellent project performance. But how project governance will achieve these goals? We will achieve these goals if we always have middle or senior managers to sponsor different projects. When we have monitoring and controlling processes in place, when we have a mechanism to audit the performance and the results of the project. Also, when we start thinking of the maturity of the project management within the organization. For project governance, we have different models, and we have these models moving from a simple one-person model to a more complex portfolio model. So we have mainly four models. We have one-person model when we have a sponsor. We have a steering committee, including the sponsor. We have a project governance committee, we have project management office, and we have steering committee. And then we have portfolio governance committee, also with the previous components. We have the project governance committee in addition to project management office, in addition to steering committee. So why we have different models for project governance? Because projects are different. For example, we might have small projects. The company decide there are small projects. These projects are, for example, 6 months or less. Or it might cost less than a certain amount of dollars. In this situation, we may decide that one-person governance model is enough. So we have the project sponsor, for example, vice president of marketing, if it is a marketing project, the department manager, for example, if it is a project related to this department. We might have a medium-sized project. So again, the duration is a little longer, and or the amount of dollars of this project is a bigger. In this case, we might have a project sponsor, a steering committee. This is the most common model that's used in the businesses. However, project-based or project-driven companies, they need a more elaborative model. So companies who have a projectized organizational structure, or they have a mature project management practices, they will always deploy a project governance committee in addition to the sponsor and in addition to the steering committee. Also, they will have a project management office, and this project management office will play a great role in project governance. The aim of any project governance model is to practice good governance. And good governance should have clear roles and responsibilities, should have accountability standards in place, should have disclosure and transparency, and also good methodology to assess and manage risks, and a solid process for decision making. And of course, this has to be done under ethical framework. So when considering the best governance model for our business or our company, we think of the project characteristics, how big or small this project, how costly this project, also the project roles, who's involved in this project, who's doing what. And also we consider the processes, for example, the decision making, the signing off on decisions, the approval of changes, whether technical or administrative. And also documentation. Are we willing to do this project with minimal documentation, or we need more elaborative documentation? Project governance models has some elements, and these are culture of openness and accountability, effective project management methodology, people to make governance work effectively, effective and valued project management office, and also a software to support reporting. The corporate culture plays huge role in governance. Corporate culture, for example, will dictate, do we embrace excellence? Do we use best practice processes? Do we recognize that risks should be managed and we cannot avoid risks all the time? Do we have means to cultivate open and honest communication? Also, corporate culture is really related to accountability and responsibility. So accountability and responsibility is the core in the project manager role. So when we don't have proper distribution of accountability and responsibilities in place, this will have some undesired impact on the effectiveness of the processes of the organization. It will affect also the morals of our teams. So we need to have a solid process to define who is accountable for what. And we need to have a corporate culture that encourages and motivates people, and they feel they are responsible, they feel they are consulted, they feel that their opinion is valued. Then we have the project management methodology that includes the repeatable and consistent processes, and also include recognized standards. So we have some control process in place. So we have processes to monitor and control processes. We have tools to monitor and control tasks and metrics related to the project management. We have some measures in place. And we don't depend on a single time assessment, for example. No, we have a mature process in place that support the project manager in measuring the performance and taking actions when there is some deviation happens. It's very important to have the right people. The right people are skilled. They have the ability to plan and manage portfolios, programs and projects. We have a recognized career path in project management. So these people are always polishing their knowledge. They are always seeking training. And we have the project manager with certain competencies, and we have a system to develop necessary skills throughout the organization. And here we have 4 main crucial roles. We have the sponsor, we have the steering committee, we have the project management office, and we have the project manager. When we have good project governance in place, we will have a single point of accountability. We will have ways to deal with issue management and resolution. We will have information distribution and clear communication across the organization. We will have outlined roles, responsibilities, relationships among the project stakeholders. So, what effective project management office do? Effective project management office promote best practices in projects, processes, and standards. The office is responsible for training and monitoring project staff. They are responsible for operating and supporting project management software. They do also consolidation. They also are responsible for consolidating and managing data from projects into corporate systems, for example, to highlight trends, to deal with issues, and escalate some issues to management attention, and also to provide resources to assist with peak planning workloads. According to the Project Management Institute, there are 3 types of project management office. First one is supportive office. The second one is controlling office. The third one is directive office. So when you acquire the right people, the knowledge, the skills, the collaborative behavior, when you identify and execute high impact, high visibility initiatives, so you do some sort of prioritization. When you understand how projects are linked to the vision of the organization, and when you build a framework that align the project management office to the strategic plan of the company or the organization, and you use the tools available to you to report to senior management the data and the information they need to know to take seamless decisions, now you are effective project management office. So at the end, you will find a discussion board on the contents of this program. So I want you to use this board to describe examples of governance that you may have encountered. For example, in a job that you have had, or in an organization that you've volunteered with. I also want you to discuss, do they work well or not? And why they are not working well, or why did they work well? See you next week.